Hello friends, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another 13 days of Halloween tutorial. In this video, we are going to make a skeleton in a bathtub little craft. I have been wanting to do this for a couple years now and I'm finally doing it. So I have got an old little flower tin pot thing that I'm going to repurpose as the bathtub for my skeleton. The skeleton I got at Joann's. It's like a medium sized skeleton. I don't know. You can do this on as big or as small of a scale as you would like to. So you'll just find your skeleton and then find a bathtub shaped object that the skeleton will fit in. You can use a bowl, you can use something like what I'm using, whatever you want. Just throw your skeleton in there. So I'm going to do epoxy here as my water. And one thing I want to say to preface this whole thing is that I would, if I made this again, I would put something in the bottom of my bathtub to prevent having to use so much epoxy. I was just so gung-ho and so excited to do this that I just went right in with my epoxy and ended up having to use so much epoxy to fill this big bathtub up. So I don't know if I would use concrete or something in the bottom to kind of raise that base up a little bit, and then you end up having to use less epoxy. So that's what I would recommend doing before you start going in with your epoxy, because I used so much epoxy and you really can't even see it in the end result. So that's my piece of advice before we jump into this. Anyway, what I am doing is starting off with a little bit of plain epoxy, and for all of these layers, by the way, I'm using Flynn Supply Shop Artist Cure epoxy, so the regular set, not fast set. So starting with this first layer, I poured in a little bit of plain epoxy, and I'm using that to kind of just position my skeleton in the bathtub. I positioned him, her, them, whatever, with their knees up, and I'm gonna put the hands up in the air so they don't get accidentally epoxied down, and then we'll position the hands at the very end. So once I've got the skeleton in the bathtub, I'm going to mix together a few different colors of blue so that this looks like water. I'm using alcohol inks from Jen's Crafted Gems, and she looks like she's no longer in business, so I would just recommend using whatever alcohol inks you can find. You can get them at Michael's, Joann's, wherever. You just want a few different shades of bluey teal, and you'll mix those together, and then you'll just pour them and mix them and make a watery look. Now, like I said, you're not going to see this at all. So if you want to go in with just your plain epoxy for your first couple layers, after you add something in to raise the floor up a little bit, so you would put your skeleton in, and then I would probably, my brain automatically goes to concrete, so I would probably put concrete in there, which would make it really heavy. It's really heavy with epoxy anyway, but anything you can think of, make sure you just put your skeleton in first and then add your little bottom layer and then go in with your epoxy for the water. I got these little beads. I think I got them at Michael's. I'm not sure. Michael's or Joann's. And they're just white, pearly beads. I'm going to use two different types. They've got two different finishes on them. But what I'm doing is just kind of scattering them throughout each layer of epoxy so that it looks like bubbles in the water. You can do that if you want. If you don't want to, you don't have to. For some of these layers, I'm using mica. For some, I added glitter in to make it look like a shimmery kind of water, also to kind of make it look like bubbles. So whatever you want to do for your water, you can. You can use glitter, you can use mica, you can use pigments, you can use whatever. You just want to make this look as watery and as bubble bathy as possible in these layers, and then we'll add some more details at the end to really bring the bubble bath look to life. So for this, I think I ended up doing like 7 or 8 layers of epoxy. And every time I'm mixing my epoxy, I'm mixing up 240 milliliters. And thank goodness I have an epoxy mixer because it would be a nightmare to have to mix that by hand. So what I'm doing with the Artist Cure specifically is mixing 240 milliliters in my epoxy mixer for about like 45 minutes. I left this mixing for a long time to make sure that it was completely mixed before pouring it into the bathtub. So it's kind of just like a set it and forget it type thing. And I'm waiting probably like a full 24 hours in between coats, sometimes even longer, because the weather's not super warm. Regular setting epoxy takes a while to set anyway, and I wanted to make sure that each layer was really well set before I moved on to the next layer. I'm not going to show you every single layer that I'm doing here, but basically the process is the same. In each layer, I'm just adding a few different elements and kind of mixing things up so that we get this really nice, deep looking water. So I'm using a light alcohol ink, I'm using a little more glitter, like I said, I'm using mica, throwing in those little beads every now and then so that we look like we've got bubbles going through the whole bath. But yeah, just going to fill up the bathtub basically all the way, and then we'll get into adding more of our bathtubby, more of our details. All right, so here's what our bathtub looks like after it is totally filled with epoxy. For my last layer, I did just do plain epoxy without anything mixed into it, and I did sprinkle those little beads in there as well. And now we're going to add all of the remaining details to really make this look like the skeleton is taking a bath. So these beads I got at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to use these in almost the same way that we use the other ones. I'm going to kind of create some little like bubble clusters to look like they're floating on the surface. We're also going to put some on the rim of the bathtub. We'll end up putting a few on the skeleton itself to make it look like the skeleton's covered in little bubbles. And to adhere these, I'm going to use my UV resin, and I'm just going to put these down in little clusters, cure it right away with my UV lamp. And then once we've got enough that I feel like we can start adding other things, we will add those other things. I also added some random little blobs of UV resin to kind of look like little water areas or little like other forms of bubbles. I don't know. I just kind of like went with the impulsive thought to do that randomly all over the bathtub. So I'm going to put those down, cure that for maybe like 2 minutes with my UV lamp. And then we're going to kind of pivot for a little bit. I initially had left this just like this white color, like kind of like an off-white tone. And then I thought, you know what, this is Halloween. I should paint the bathtub black. So I took my black acrylic paint and painted the whole thing black. And of course, if you want to, you can glitter your bathtub. That would be really cute. You can do like a stucco type thing. You can use like whatever sort of texture on the outside you want. You can glitter and epoxy it like a tumbler if you want to. No limits to what you do to your bathtub. I just painted it plain black and that was good enough for me. The next little detail we're going to add is a little like turby twisty towel to the skeleton's head. So I'm going to use these little microfiber towels from the Dollar Tree, and these are just washcloth size, and I'm going to cut them into fourths. And I don't know the best way to explain this, but I'm going to wrap this around the skeleton's head the same way that you would wrap your hair up in a towel after you wash it. So I'm going to cut it into a square, fold it into a triangle, so fold it in half diagonally, and then I'm going to secure section by section with my hot glue as I position this to make sure that it stays in place. But I'm just going to start at the back of the skeleton's head, wrap it around the front, glue that, and then create that little like turby twist look that we have when we wrap our hair up in a towel. All right, now that our skeleton has her turby twist on, we can start to add the like foamy bubbles to the rest of the bathtub to make it look really bubble bathy. And I'm going to use like pillow stuffing to do this. You can just get a bag of this at any craft store, probably even Walmart. And what I'm going to do is take little chunks of it and secure it down with my hot glue. And I'm going to kind of position this a little bit like openly, if that makes sense. I want to still be able to see little pockets of the blue water that we worked so hard on and used so much epoxy creating. But I'm also going to fill up the edges of the bathtub because you can see there's that line where we stopped painting. So I'm going to line the edges of the bathtub with the foam. It's not foam, the pillow stuffing. And then we'll just kind of fill in as much of the bathtub as we can to make it look like a bubble bath, but we still want to leave those little pockets where you can look in and see that blue water underneath. You'll also see me go through with my hot glue gun and add some more little pearl beads, like in little clusters on top of the pillow stuffer or bubbles or foam or whatever, because I want to create the illusion of bubbles like being all over the place, not just at the bottom of the water. So I'm going to add a lot of these beads all over to really bring the bubble bath idea to life. All right, so once we've got all of our foamy pillow inserts and all of our bubbles added, we are all done. So here is the final skeleton in the bathtub craft. I love how this turned out. I'm so happy with it. This was so much fun to conceptualize and put together and think about how I was going to do it. I think the next one I do will maybe be a candle. I've seen a lot of those and I wanted to do that too. So let me know if you want to see that maybe next Halloween, or we can make like a Valentine's Day skeleton. I don't know. I think that little skeletons are fine for year-round usage. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up down below. Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you're going to try this out, let me know one little thing that you would do to customize your skeleton in the bathtub. Would you give it a glass of wine, some snacks, maybe an iPad watching a video, a candle, cucumbers on the eyes? You can do so many different things with this. So I want to know how you would make your skeleton all yours. All right. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I will see you in my next video, and that's it. Okay. Love you. Bye! Hello friends, thanks so much for watching this video. I want to say a huge special thank you to my elite fam, my channel members, and my subscribers. You all make this channel possible, so thank you so much for being part of the fam. If you want more exclusive content from me, you can join my elite fam at patreon.com/elitefam. You can find my tumblers and digital files on my website madebymalstudio.com. And if you'd like to follow me on social media, you can find me on Instagram at madebymal_studio. Here's another video for you to check out, and I'll see you soon. Thanks so much for watching. Love you. Bye.